Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we're back with some more Warhammer free content. This time we're again looking at Grand Cathay, but rather than looking at Cold and Aloof, we're going to look at Dragon Bro, ZHAO MING. The Iron Dragon will share the same mechanics as his sister, the Storm Dragon, Miao Ying, however he will also have some stuff to make him fairly unique. As the mechanics are very much the same, this video might be shorter than Miao Ying's, and I'm avoiding all cinematics in-game and the flyovers because that's what caused the frame rate issues yesterday, so I just kind of want to avoid that. And as always, this is still early access, as you can see, development's still in progress, so anything that you do see, don't take it as gospel as it could be subject to change. With all that being said, let's not waste any more time and jump right in. So as it stands, you'll be starting in the southern reaches of Grand Cathay, or at least what's available of Grand Cathay, where your faction will border the lands of the Mountains of Morn, meaning that you'll have a lot of ogres to your south and to your west. This presents a lot of opportunities to fight against the ogres, but you can also work with them too, we'll get to that in just a minute. Also, you'll be fighting directly against the Skaven of Clan Eshin, as you'll already start at war with them. What differentiates him from his sister is more varied types of enemies, as the further south you go into the Mountains of Morn, you'll not only be dealing with ogres, but dwarfs and also greenskins. I'd say comparison out of the two, Miao Ying does the most fighting as she's constantly dealing with the threat of chaos, which you will have to deal with too, but ZHAO Ming has the most varied amount of possible enemies. You're not going to be constantly dealing with chaos, and chaos until you decide to start taking the Bastion for yourself. In regards to faction effects, ZHAO Ming has Ruler of the Western Provinces, which has the following benefits. Maximum cargo capacity plus 20% for caravans. Caravans are obviously a very good source of income, and having extra cargo naturally is going to increase that revenue quite substantially. Hero recruit rank plus 5 for Alchemists. Alchemists are your lore of metal wizard casters. They're a hero choice, so you're able to get quite a decent amount of spells just by recruiting a new one. There are also other factors in play like skills and so on, which will increase their recruit rank, so you can get them fairly high level as you progress for your campaign. Upkeep minus 25% for ogre mercenary units. And finally, armor plus 15 for melee units. This means that your faction is based more on melee combat, you'll have some skills to further push that too, whereas Miao Ying, your sister, is more focused towards range, which is the whole yin and yang aspect. ZHAO Ming also has a unique trait known as Lord of the Jade Swan, which has the following effects. Magic item drop chance plus 100%. Now that magic items are a lot more worth it throughout the Total War series, as if you get some bad ones you can still upgrade them by combining two, this is a decent trait. Upkeep minus 25% for melee units and Lord's Army, which will stack up with other upkeep reduction skills that you have, and it will make them ridiculously cheap. And finally, Harmony plus 3 for Yang. Stat-wise, he's also pretty good as you can see, and he is pretty strong in his dragon form like his sister, but he has the benefit of keeping his breath attack spell when he becomes a dragon, which in the case of fighting Skaven and so on, if you're going to be dealing with hordes, breath spells are pretty good. Skill-wise, he's also got all the generic stuff as you can imagine, but he's also got a special mixture of magic, a mixture of the lore of metal and the lore of yang, keeping him as aggressive as possible. Which by comparison, his sister had more defensive style of play. You can get two different types of playstyle when you're playing as each of the Cathayan lords. Dragon's Breath and Wall of Wind and Fire in particular are quite powerful spells, at least I've used them quite heavily when fighting against other Skaven and Greenskin hordes, and they pair up fairly nicely with Final Transmutation and Constellation of the Dragon. On a personal note, I'd say magic-wise, ZHAO Ming probably has the better lore. ZHAO Ming also has access to two unique skill lines, with the first focusing on rather different things. You're getting reductions to cooldown to your Lore of Metal spells, even the Winds of Magic cost themselves, which can make those spells very, very useful. You can also increase your diplomatic relations with the ogres quite dramatically too, plus 40, and also reduce the upkeep of ogre mercenary units once again, and recruitment cost, meaning that if you need mercenaries very quickly, this should make it much easier for you. Increase the hero capacity of your alchemists and also their recruit rank, and finally also getting some regeneration. Whereas the second skill line focuses around him being an alchemist in his own right, where he'll be able to get an augment and then choose which one to further empower it. You only get the one choice, but all of them are fairly powerful as you can see right here. Once again, this very much depends on your playstyle, but it further pushes ZHAO Ming to be very different to his sister, as he obviously finds a lot of kingmanship with the alchemists that are untrusted within Grand Cathay. ZHAO MING even has some further unique skills which will once again put some more emphasis on the need of melee units, where you'll be able to increase their melee attack, their weapon strength, also increase his own personal armor. This, of course, is once again showing the difference between the two siblings. In truth, this just makes me wonder how they're going to implement further dragon siblings, as we know that there are other active ones throughout Grand Cathay, but that's a question for another day. So the first thing you need to do, as expected, is deal with the Skaven of Clan Eshen, as, well, you don't want Skaven around your territories, and certainly not within Grand Cathay. The Death Master has a few bases which are easy enough to take out, and early on they're going to be quite weak, as mostly they'll be having clan rats and slaves, with the first army being incredibly weak, but that's there for newer players to get used to the game. There are of course some, ruins, which may or may not be having any ratmen beneath the sewers, and as you may have noticed for the map, you're not just fighting Clan Eshen, but also some Cathayan rebels too, and they can team up. Keep in mind that while they're not allied, they can end up reinforcing each other if you're fighting two of their armies very close to each other. As with every other faction in Total War Warhammer 3 at the moment, by defeating the first enemy army, you'll also get a free hero. When it's ZHAO MING, you'll get access to an Alchemist. These are Lore of Metal spellcasters, which is the only way that you'll be able to get Lore of Metal spells, barring ZHAO MING of course, throughout Grand Cathay, as your only Lord options at the moment have access to the Lore of Yin and the Lore of Yang, so you need heroes if you want to get the Lore of Heavens or the Lore of Metal. As you would have already noticed, above their spell lore is also a special skill line, which is the exact same as that of ZHAO MING, so you're able to get some special augments only for these spellcasters. The first one is a generic one, and then you have 3 options, but you'll just be able to pick one and the other 2 will lock out, meaning that if you want all 3 options, you'll need 3 different alchemists. Harmony is of course very important for all Cathayan factions, though ZHAO MING is more focused towards that of Yang, so you'll already have the benefits of Yang. Which admittedly is rather strange, as it seems to focus more towards Yin than anything else, but that could be trying to make it easier for you to work on a way of Harmony itself. As you can see in the grayed out area, Harmony does provide a lot more bonuses if you manage to find the equal ground, which is affected by characters, effects, buildings, and technology. There are so many different ways to go about this, which, if you're not planning too well ahead, you can find yourself starting to get deeper and deeper negatives. For those who are not aware, if they weren't interested in Miao Ying, you have the same technology tab, which is separated in 3 separate branches. Now, these branches also have separate sub-branches, which is focused on the following. The upper part has a focus on Yan, the lower part has a focus on Yin, and the middle has a focus on administration. There are some mixes in between, where, say for example, you can find some administration stuff in the upper parts and the lower parts, but generally everything is kind of spread out evenly. The Yan and Yin technologies will focus towards your Harmony, so plan ahead when you're doing this, because at one point I kind of focused on one section and then was thrown completely out of Harmony. You will notice that Harmony is perhaps one of your most valuable resources throughout the game as Grand Cathay. Buildings for Grand Cathay are also the same for both factions, though you might want to note that your building to recruit Alchemists is only on tier 3 in a major settlement, and obviously you'll want to do that if you want to benefit from high-ranking spellcasters, as even without ZHAO Ming's extra skill, you can already get them at rank 6, meaning that you can already have a decent amount of spells very, very early on. Other than that, it is important to note that your defense buildings and your infrastructure buildings will also have the whole Harmony mechanic attached to them. None of your military buildings, such as basic or advanced, will have that. This means that when you build one specific building, as they're always in pairs, you won't be able to build the other. If we look towards the 2 defense buildings, you can only get one of those lines. Same thing as the infrastructure, there are 3 different pairs, and you can see that the art themselves is very similar to mirror the whole aspect of Yin and Yang. Caravans we've already covered in detail, but keep in mind that ZHAO MING also confers bonuses to them, so even without their skill points, you'll also start getting some extra cash. As you level up the caravan with ZHAO MING, you'll be able to get a lot of money. It is fairly noticeable just with that 20% bonus at the very beginning. While it can be easy to forget about the caravans, with ZHAO MING it is quite important to keep using them constantly, as the more you can level it, well, in general it's important to use it, but ZHAO MING will get a large larger benefit from it, especially since the campaign is focused in down southern Cathay. As you can see, my first caravan can already get me 5,800 in my treasury, which is a very nice boost, especially if I'm going to play hyper aggressively, which I normally do, to be able to get more and more areas built up relatively quickly. You will also have the mechanic of the Great Bastion threat, although as ZHAO Ming you won't notice it too much, normally because your sister will then colonize Snakegate and defend it, and I've noticed that she slowly starts working her way up through the other gates to defend them herself. The mechanic itself isn't too much of an issue unless bigger and badder armies start coming in. If you start dealing with, say for example, a legendary playthrough, you'll start to notice that Miao Ying might need some help, and then you'll have to start worrying about the mechanic itself. Or if you decide to confederate her early on, or whenever possible, then you'll have to start worrying about the mechanic. Caravan ambushes and caravan attacks will actually be a welcome sight with ZHAO Ming, as you already get the benefits from it. If you can deal with the early ones early on and power level your character, then you're going to get much more benefits from it. This works for both, but more so for ZHAO Ming. And as you already get better cargo with ZHAO Ming's faction effects, you can already focus on better sales to get even more cash, which obviously becomes very beneficial to you, as far as I am aware, I've tested this a few times, the caravan that's already been sent out will then get the benefit of the extra sales. You'll also have access to the Wuxing Compass, which will provide faction-wide benefits and is available to you from turn 5. What I'm not 100% sure, and I'm going to have to do some testing on, is if both factions will have access to this if played in co-op. I'm imagining so, but it doesn't really make too much sense. That being said, these provide very good benefits, and especially early on, if you're fighting with a lot of factions, you're going to want either growth or public order to be able to just get your settlements down and sorted. Pretty early on can you start forming other armies, especially with peasant stacks, and this is the same with both siblings, though with ZHAO Ming being the more aggressive of the two in terms of playstyle from my experience at the very least, it is always best to get an army up and running as soon as you're able to, and finding the lord which is right for you. There are 3 different options, of course: the Lord Magistrate, which is focused on melee, and then there's the Dragon-Blooded, which there are 2, one with the Law of Yin and one with the Law of Yang. I'd say it doesn't matter too much, but obviously harmony does come into effect here, as you can see that I was already pushed into Yin for this. However, that was more or less intentional, as I've been preferring the Law of Yin when having a basic side army. As you can see on the map itself, I have a bunch of ogres and greenskins near me, and obviously that's going to be a bit of an issue for me if I only have about 1 army, seeing as there's multiple ways in through the Mountains of Morn. You can see 2 right here, and obviously the greenskins can jump over, so you need to be prepared for pretty much anything. Plus at one point I started declaring war on everyone because I got a little cocky, so yeah, important to have multiple armies. And this is just confirmation that the skills do work even if your caravans are already out, meaning that I made a lot more money. Here is 6,300 where I believe originally it was 5,800. It might not sound like a lot, but as soon as you start getting your caravans into more and more fights, you're going to be able to get a lot more profit out of this. You'll be able to expand fairly quickly. However, if you want to keep a more roleplay aspect of keeping harmony within Grand Cathay and not fighting with other Cathayan factions, you will find yourself kinda scrunched up. However, if you don't want to deal with all the chaos corruption in the north, you do have all the south to work through with the Mountains of Morn and so on, so you still have a lot of enemies. The other Cathayan factions might still declare war on you, however, as you can tell, one of them isn't liking me too much at the moment. It's getting to an orange face, and I think it's mainly because I've been expanding, and yeah, that kind of happens. This is obviously total war after all, and eventually all factions will start wanting to declare war on you. And I know some people were asking, but I wasn't able to show it off due to time constraints yesterday, but this is the Great Maw. We have a physical representation of the god, or main god of the ogres. It's pretty grim. Honestly, I never imagined it to look like this. It looks very much like a very Warhammer-ish Sarlacc from the Star Wars universe. As we never really had any representation in form of illustrations, we always had some words to go by, and that's pretty much it. And I always imagined it more to be something else, in all honesty, though this is the Great Maw, and now people are able to see it. You can physically see one of the gods of the Warhammer universe right in front of your eyes. Again, just to reinforce caravan usage with ZHAO Ming, you can see that my treasury is currently 47,000, and in about 10 turns I'll be able to get 8.4 more, and that's without any extra extra modifiers. I do have a few with tons of skill points and so on, but I'm talking about any extra that I could get on the way down. As you can see the markers there, green means that there is a very small chance that you'll be attacked, yellow means that it's higher, and orange, I believe, is the last one, is that you will have a very high chance of being ambushed or attacked. Now, we're already in the Mountains of Morn, and you can already notice something strange here. Provincial settlements cannot get up to tier 5. All provincial settlements in the Mountains of Morn can only get up to tier 3 at max. This is more in reference to Cathayan players, as you will obviously have the option of coming down here, but that means that you will be limited in terms of buildings and even certain effects that you might want or certain troops that you might want to unlock. This is just to let you know in advance in case you are planning to invade the Mountains of Morn. Don't expect to be able to build all the high tier units here without using global recruitment and costing a lot more money. You're able to get a decent amount of territory by turn 25, which is where I am on right now, and you can see I've already started moving in through the mountains. Keep in mind that you do also have the benefit of the plus 40 diplomatic relations once you hit a certain level with ZHAO MING, which focuses on diplomatic relations with the ogre kingdoms themselves, so you can keep fairly well in relations with them and not even have to touch the Mountains of Morn if you don't want to. This falls under two factors, whether you want to or not, and whether you trust the ogres not to attack you or not. And obviously keep in mind that ogres are still ogres, and they are fairly unpredictable and might send a few hordes against you. This clip, on the other hand, is from another campaign where I've decided to turn on my Cathayan siblings and instead ally up with the ogres. We've been on good diplomatic relations, mostly in the form of non-aggression pacts, but it's allowed me to expand, get cities that will actually be worth it for me, and not have to deal with anything else. So for the past 23 turns that this campaign has been going on, I've been ignoring both the ogres and the forces of chaos while slaughtering my own kinsmen. But that's pretty much it, as obviously ZHAO MING and Miao Yin share the same mechanics, and they can be very similar, but they do have different playstyles. As I've said from my own experience, and obviously this might vary from player to player, I found ZHAO MING to be very hyper-aggressive, whereas Miao Yin is a bit more on the defensive side and more passive. But let me know what you guys think about the Legendary Lords, and which one you prefer. There's a few more videos coming out today, hopefully. If not, they'll be coming out tomorrow, because I'm kinda stretched really thin at the moment, but I shall see you all very, very soon. But with that, my friends, we've come to the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, might I suggest giving the video a like, or even subscribing to the channel, as it really does help us out. In the description section below are various links to different social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, and Discord. Also in the description section is an affiliate link with Element Games where you could buy loads of hobby-based products, not just Warhammer, for 10 to 25% off. Making a purchase using that link and also our special code, which is also in the description, supports the channel at no extra cost to you, which we think is rather cool. A big thank you to our patrons. Your support means the world to us. It's amazing that people want to help a small channel like us grow and get to a higher level of content. A big thank you to Gibraltar LUSC, Ryan Bertsche, Andrew Prince, and Okro for subscribing to us at our Fane level. You guys are super cool. And a big thank you to Edward Yule, VS Vasan, Aaron Whitman, and Shaggy for subscribing to us at our King level. Honestly, we can't thank you all enough. And lastly, a big thank you to all of you for liking, sharing, and commenting on these videos. Honestly, it's because of you guys that the channel has been growing at such a great pace lately, so we can't thank you all enough. But with that, my friends, thank you so much for watching once again, and we shall see you all again very, very soon. Have a good day.